Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you can see, after a while, I have with me Lieutenant General Dushyant Singh, someone I actually go back to ask about the region of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Here is an Indian general who knows people, who knows the place, who knows the culture. And I think I'd like you to remember that with General Dushyant Singh, we have covered some very intricate subjects about Pashtunwadi, about the whole culture in Afghanistan, and when the Afghanistan story was unfolding last year. Sir, thank you so much, firstly, for sharing your inputs over past some time, and of course, our offline conversations. This, to me, is a study a little 1 month plus 1 year of Afghanistan. But there is something that has happened in the past sometime which I wanted to ask you. So thank you so much once again for joining me, sir.
Thank you, Adi, and good to see you again on this platform.
Sir, the recent strike, we were talking about this offline also. Al-Qaeda leader Zawahiri was killed off. Now, interesting questions come out, fair enough, great weapon, great drone, all that okay. Many people say that this drone came from Kazakhstan. Now, where did that news come from? God alone only knows, because it kind of featured within Pakistan and it kind of died off. Many people say that there is a Pakistani hand who's playing with a section of Taliban who's kind of away from the Haqqanis. Pakistan is trying to kind of split the Taliban open. Haqqanis were their close friends, didn't really work. I think that relationship got damaged or whatever it was. Uh, Also, why I say this is that the kind of condemnation that Afghans themselves have given is very muted. How do you see this entire game of the Zawahiri killing?
See, first of all, I would say that we have to, see this entire incident in the perspective of the regional dynamics of that area. The regional dynamics of that area, especially Afghanistan, is now strung between 4, 5 entities. First is the Afghan Taliban itself, right? Afghan Taliban is now no more a militant organization in a classical sense to say. So therefore, now they have been given the responsibility to rule. But at the same time, their linkages, past historical linkages tie them down into very, very strict domains. And I am here referring to the TTP, which is across the border in Pakistan. Even if they want to control TTP will not really be in full control of Afghan Taliban, because that is exactly what the Afghan Taliban was doing against the US and the Northern Alliance forces who were ruling Afghanistan for the last 20 years. So therefore, the muted support to TTP of Afghan Taliban has been one of the reasons for this particular, uh, you know, current situation which is there in Afghanistan. The second thing which you have to see is that ISISK, which is at the core of all the problems today which Afghan Taliban is facing, has its own narrative. And that narrative is that Afghan Taliban has sold itself to the US, essentially after the Doha Agreement. And after the Doha Agreement, ISISK has taken a position exactly diametrically opposite to the Afghan Taliban. See, the Afghan Taliban did not object to ISISK in the initial stages when they were fighting the battle with the Americans, because the aim of Afghan Taliban was being served by the strikes which were taking place by the ISISK against the US forces, right? But once the US forces have withdrawn, ISISK's bigger interest is to bring down all those forces which have compromised with the US. Okay, now if you look at the third angle in this, which is the Hazaras. Okay, Hazaras are putting pressure on Afghan Taliban from the West, essentially because of the Iranian support. And then you have the resistance forces, which are still active. They have not died down. They're going to emerge. Let me tell you, it's my prophecy to say that Afghan Taliban, because if you see the statement of Amarullah Saleh, the ex vice president, he said that we are down, not out. And every right thinking Afghanistani will oppose Afghan Taliban. So look at a government which is in place and is seeing so many complex pressures under it. At the same time, Ayman al Jawahiri, who had been kind of an advisor, supporter of Afghan Taliban for the last few years through the Haqqani network linkages, and you must not forget who's the Minister of Internal Security. It is Sirajuddin
Akani.
Haqqani.
Mhm.
And where best you could have hidden a personal friend,
In his own house, probably.
probably in his own backyard. So with the maximum highest degree of support. My take on this particular incident is slightly different from what normally people are attributing to. The Pakistan may have said, Pakistan may have given the intelligence, or the strike came from Tajikistan. My take on this is the trappings of power. As of now, Afghanistan is feeling the heat of feeding its people, feeling the heat of getting the energy back into the country, feeling the heat of actually running the country. Where does it go? Does it go to Pakistan, which is already in doldrums, which is going around with a begging bowl as of now, with the Chinese also now pulling their hand back? What options does Afghanistan Taliban have? Obviously, go back to old friend India of Afghanistan. I mean, let's look at it that Afghanistan and India, irrespective of the government, have always tried to approach Afghanistan with a view to balance Pakistan, right? So India was one factor which they have been trying to approach. Israelis are the others which they are trying to approach. They even approached the Americans. If you go back a few months, they actually were trying to woo the Americans as well. What happened during that visit? I mean, one has to just think and extrapolate. Then they've also tried to make amends with the Russians. Iranians, they've signed an agreement, in fact.
Yeah, they're buying oil. So.
Absolutely. So it is the trapping of the power which had to be, ensured, so that the people of Afghanistan at least get the basic minimum. I'm not even talking of your human liberty, etc. Those are things which will come much later. For that to happen, they must have roti, kapda, and makan.
Basics.
The human aid, etc. Everything is at the stake as far as Afghanistan is concerned. They were not getting this kind of an aid from the aid coming to India, coming from India was being subjected to checks, etc. by Pakistanis. So they're also reading, where we can get the best. They have similarly now approached China for giving visas to their businessmen. So the Chinese have started now bypassing Pakistan and giving visas to the Kabul business community. What is the impact? Creating markets for the Chinese. It may be a very small amount, but
Whatever.
For Afghanistan, it's a big, huge option other than Pakistan. Now, in this game, if they want to get something from the West, what best? Discard a fossil, discard a person who is absolutely irrelevant.
Useless, actually.
Today, today, Al Qaeda's strength in Afghanistan is very, very dismal. The people are leaving Afghan Taliban, going and joining ISISK. People are leaving TTP, and joining ISISK. And let's not forget the Uyghur rebels.
Hmm.
Let's not forget them. They are also trying to gravitate to a power which can resist in this region. And you always know that a nucleus which is stronger attracts the others. To me, it looks like that there is going to be ISISK as the counter state of Afghanistan. Add the statement of Amrullah Saleh, who said that we will take support of anyone who can oppose Afghan Taliban. What does that imply?
Ouch.
It has been given by him in verbal
Yeah, I
statement.
saw that tweet. Yes, sir.
So when it comes to interests, I think Islam, Sharia, all those go to the side and the interest come first. So we are seeing a change in the approach of the Islamic world here. And the road probably is being shown by the Saudi Arabians, who are now making treaties with Israel, the UAE guys who are making a treaty with Israel. Qatar has become more and more more and more practical about its approach with the other countries. Yes, they will have to give odd statements, against India about Kashmir, etc. That's fine. Those are all, blips to just keep their, some elements of their fraternity and community a little satisfied. But the real game is now being played by this region, I think, for security,
So I
for
must say
future.
the phrase that you've used, the trappings of power, is very critical to understand because a lot of people did not really recognize that the Taliban would have the capability of actually understanding the trappings of power. But having said that, looking at their actions, I'm not saying all of them, but certain actions does tell you that there is a certain understanding coming in within that group that was we need to straighten up, otherwise we'll be pushed out.
Absolutely.
There's no
Absolutely.
question about it.
Absolutely. But there are factions also in Taliban, you must realize.
Absolutely,
So,
yes.
so what aberrations which you are seeing are those factions getting,
Stronger.
independent, or sometimes taking unilateral decisions against the government line of thinking. So that you can't help it in a government which is unilateral, not elected by people, which is more of a ideological formation. You will have dissents which will be overriding the central themes or central ideology. It's very common in such kind of governments, which is, in my view, Afghan Taliban has to reform through a civil war, which may take place in due course of time, and something
Uh,
better might come in Afghanistan. That's my hope.
let's hope so, sir. So we spoke about, you mentioned about the TTP, and that is interesting because rumor has it that the TTP has actually taken over certain swaths of land within Pakistan in the, the as erstwhile known as FATA, today KPK, and that entire region. Of course, these are just rumors. It's difficult, but the rumors are pretty detailed in the fact that they talk about collection of taxes, they talk about protection taxes, they talk about courts being set up, and so on and so forth. Uh, Considering for a minute, these rumors are true, what is the impact of something like this happening within Pakistan, and how does Afghanistan actually strengthen itself by having this insertion, if I may?
Okay, first of all, let me explain the dynamics of TTP. TTP after see, by about 2018, TTP was on a downslide
Hmm.
due to number of reasons, including a very very harsh military action being taken
Pakistan.
by Pakistan. But once Nur Ali Masood took over, and the directions of Afghan Taliban not to indiscriminately target people who are civilians, it started rising up in stock as far as the image of the Taliban Pakistan is concerned.
Hmm.
That was factor number one, which started repositioning the image of TTP in the minds of the area which is you're referring to, erstwhile FATA, KPK. What was their demand? Their demand was to decouple the merger which the Pakistanis had done of FATA and
Yeah, Swat
KPK,
and
etc.
yeah.
SWAT and FATA, SWAT, etc. So that demand of theirs stands. The second demand which they had was that due to the actions which the Pakistani security forces had taken, they had a large number of prisoners in Pakistani jails.
Yeah.
But what happened to Pakistan security forces was that due to their internal problems, which are far too many to even recount in this discussion, as also the fact that they thought that now since Afghan Taliban, I'm talking of last 1 year's activity only, that Afghan Taliban has now been, capable of or succeeded in taking over the reins of Afghanistan. So therefore, Taliban and the TTP's linkages could be exploited to resolve the TTP problem of Pakistan, which was the greatest problem as far as Pakistan is concerned. Pakistan military feels that their number one problem is TTP, not even Balochistan. Okay, that would be resolved. Unfortunately, that did not happen. What are the reasons for this? There are two, three reasons which you must understand. First, it was seen by TTP leadership at that point in time, which was already on a rise now. Okay, which was on a repositioned image, a good image amongst the local public there of the region. You must realize 52% of Pashtuns are there in Pakistan and not so much so in Afghanistan. There are 48% people. So their image was getting better and better as far as this region was concerned. The second thing was eagerness of Pakistan military to get into a peace negotiation dialogue with TTP was seen by TTP leadership as a weakness of the Pakistan military establishment. Now,
Okay.
this I am telling you after having gone through a various local experts who have written on this. The third reason was Afghan Taliban was not very keen to negotiate with TTP for a peace settlement. It was giving a very muted support. When the Afghan Taliban took over power, there was a delegation led by Nur Ali Masood and the other, there were three more prominent leaders who went to Afghanistan, Kabul, to congratulate the Supreme Commander Akhund, Habibullah Akhund. So when they reached there, they basically brotherhood was seen in full bloom at that point in time. Both the factions, congratulating, celebrating the victory over the US. It was at that time that the Afghanistani government, military security government, gave a kind of a statement to tell them that look, the Pakistanis have approached them for a rapprochement, so please get into some negotiations with them. And it was kind on the sidelines, kar lena type. That was dekh lena type. So they also first the TTP was a little shocked by the this kind of a thing being told in a congratulatory felicitation meeting, but then possibly they realized that yes, they had a commitment with the Pakistanis military establishment, so they were also a little hand tied, so they had given this kind of a thing. So they went back with this feeling that Afghan Taliban remains in support of TTP because the first fighters to be released from Bagram jail were 5,000
All TVP.
direct TTP guys. So
5,000 of them, sir. My
yeah,
God.
so there is this saying something and doing something. So the TTP got this hint that Taliban will remain in support of TTP. Plus the obligation for Afghan Taliban. You see, when they were fighting the battle, the TTP was actually looking after them inside the Pakistani borders. I mean, not everything was being done by Pakistan military establishment. After all, the local level support, the logistics of their operation across the borders were all being taken care by the TTP. So therefore, that obligation was always there. This was the next reason, that there was a muted support of Afghan Taliban to actually push TTP into kind of a serious peace dialogue. The third thing which the TTP has probably read from this whole incident in the last 1 year is that Pakistan, for them, it is the right time to strike at Pakistani establishment. Their economy is weak. nature is giving them hell,
Hard time.
whether it is the floods of the recent time, or earlier in the past, whatever has happened to them. Then uh, so therefore they changed their tack and started telling something else. They started targeting the entire western Pakistan.
पूरा belt ही ऐसा.
you know and I support this by the fact that their supreme commander told that Pakistani military establishment must look into the concerns of people from Baluchistan.
They joined hands with the BLA. Yes, sir.
So therefore, when you start expanding your influence in a particular region, what are you looking for? See, Sharia, yes, they want that, the Salafism kind of a rule should be adopted by Pakistan. But more than that, I think these guys are looking at a Pashtun Wali and that kind of a formation in this area with their uh, core interests secure, which Pakistanis, what they did was, in their eagerness to please the TTP, they started releasing the TTP fighters
Yeah.
from their jails, even without taking any commitments.
Goodwill. That's what they called it.
They called it as goodwill. Now, when you do such a goodwill without any transaction analysis, see, it's all about interest. When I told you in the beginning, also, unless you secure your interest, how can you start releasing? Even the US agreement, if you see US agreement between Afghan, Taliban, etc., it had a proper format. Okay, you will release so many, we will release so many, or you will do this particular thing and then we will release so many prisoners. Now, some kind of an agreement like this should have been formed before you start releasing your enemies prisoners, or adversaries prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was seen as a very big weakness by the TTP of the Pakistani security establishment. The third and the foremost was internal security of the region. The people of this region were dead against, and with Imran Khan being released, it became even more, pronounced. So therefore, seeing all these, factors, TTP today is snug in the fact that they may be dreaming, but they can do Afghan Taliban on Pakistan, right? Afghan Taliban wants and the last factor, I forgot about it. The Afghan Taliban wants a leverage against Pakistan. Any country, if it is smug in the behavior that they are my friends, and I again go back to powers of trapping, they must have some lever against a friend also. Let me put it this way. And which is the best lever? TTP.
Strategic.
Why?
The other.
Why? Yeah, why? Because now Afghan Taliban also believes in that fact that Pakistan was a state created later on. It's an artificial state which has actually split the people of Afghanistan. So they do not recognize the Durand line. And when the government changed in Kabul, Pakistan continued to build the fence.
They came and broke it.
So therefore, they are also looking at that Pakistanis are trying to, look after their interest. So why not us? So therefore, two attacks, one in April, the second one in May 2022, I'm talking of, very recent attacks, which happened in KPK area, were done by Afghan Taliban guys and not TTP. And this is coming straight from Abu Sayyad, the article which I read, and he's from the region. He actually talks to people of Afghan Taliban and then writes his articles. What does this say? बोलूंगा कुछ, करूंगा कुछ. So where the point which you are saying that there are tracts of land and control of TTP, it is in joint control of TTP and Afghan Taliban. Let me put it this way.
What you're trying to say is they're doing a Pakistan on Pakistan.
Yes, I mean, it's a leverage. I'm not saying that they, as of now, they see Pakistan as at its weakest.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? You have your interest in Durand line. You have your interest, along the frontier. You don't want your people to be split into two. So the best way is to have a very friendly region in that area, and they see TTP as the kind of a flag or a symbol which can create this thing. So therefore, they are giving them quite support.
So I mean, when you mention the attacks conducted by Afghan Taliban themselves, that kind of brings me to a certain thing that actually happened last week after this. Uh, I won't call it airstrike, but drone strike that took place on Zawahiri. The
Yeah.
Afghan Taliban came out and said that we condemn Pakistan for sharing their airspace. And that to me was interesting because of very simple reasons that the Afghan Taliban does not have air defense capability that they're able to track, leave alone
Absolutely.
an aircraft. I mean, they're able to track an MQ-9 Reaper drone, one of the
They
best.
can't operate here. As simple, they can't operate.
No, how to track something like that? I mean,
That's what I'm saying. They can't even operate. Even if they have the equipment, as of now, the training standards are not such that
fair
they
enough.
would be able to
So
actually,
it's in a
do
lot
such
of
a.
people's interest to actually give that information to Afghanistan to kind of keep Pakistan on the check. But leaving that aside, sir, how do you see the whole gambit where the Afghanistan is actually now telling Pakistan, listen, we know what you did and this is not okay.
Again, it is the same thing, the leverage. How to put pressure on Pakistan?
Yeah.
Keep blaming it for your problems. So if the world is going against you for hiding, you see, Afghan Taliban is in a very complex situation. Moment the world gets to know, especially the West, that you are hiding Ayman al-Zawahiri, it is against the Doha Agreement. You have signed the Doha Agreement saying that I will not harbor international terrorists who have been responsible for attacks in the West. How does it come out of a problem like this? So it shares the intelligence with the West, saying, "Oh, here is this guy, are kill him." But that annoys his own domestic fraternity. Yeah, you've given up your friend who has actually helped you in overthrow of the US. So he said, Pakistan has done it. I have not done it. I took all my precautions, got my interior minister to hide this guy in the best of the places. I mean, whatever precision weapons you may have, you can't kill a person in his own bloody house with a missile which has got blades, etc., etc.,
Yeah.
and no explosion.
That too at 6 o'clock in the morning when he's having a cup of tea in his bloody balcony. I
Balcony.
mean, uh,
So there are a lot of questions which, in fact, there is a conspiracy theory that he died on his own because of illness. I mean, see, people, you can't stop people from talking,
hmm, hmm,
and it is in the interest of Afghan Taliban to keep this as vague as possible
true.
because it has so many conflicting requirements to meet. See, it's already dealing with ISISK. It doesn't want to deal with remnants of this body Al-Qaeda, who may again add up to. You see, the biggest fear of Afghan Taliban is that people gravitating to ISISK. Its own ranks are being infiltrated by ISISK. So if you have the Uyghurs joining the ISISK, you have the Afghan Taliban dissidents joining the ISISK, you have the TTP. Why it is supporting TTP? Because it doesn't want TTP guys to come and join ISISK. So if a country has to balance, I mean, no, I won't say country. I mean, I would say Afghan Taliban, because as of now, I think Afghanistan is not truly a country. It's being run by a faction which has not come through a proper election. It has by force imposed itself over the people of Afghanistan. So therefore, a formation, ruling formation, which is a sectarian formation in nature, representing a particular group of people in that country, I think is in a very, very big problem to handle the trappings of power and to handle its historical baggages which it is carrying along with it. So somewhere these two are conflicting with each other and letting it do all these things which it has no option but to do. So it pleases the West by doing something. it to its domestic audience, it says it's Pakistan which has done it. So please don't join IS, ISK, etc. I will continue to support TTP. I'll continue to support the terrorists. I won't say terrorists, or current Afghan Taliban fighters who are now looking for job somewhere. See, everybody cannot be adjusted in government.
Mhm, mhm.
How many people can you put in the security forces? You need technical expertise to run governance, which Afghan Taliban doesn't have on its own. It has to rely on the existing. The cricket team of Afghan Taliban remains the same. Afghanistan remains the same. You see the players, none of them have changed. So it has to rely on existing infrastructure to run the government. So where do these so-called fighters go? Obviously, when they get disenchanted, they will go to a formation which is seen as giving them their so-called ideological aim to fight, which is to to actually eliminate all influences of the far enemy, which is the US.
Lighter note, I've heard the pay is better in ISIS. So
See, that's that that is something which you and me, can assume and say. But yes, they are at liberty to take whatever they want to take. If the government, if the UN gives some aid to group of people, they will enter that house and take that.
yeah,
But
very
if
good.
they are part of the government, they can't do that.
Their ability to actually raise funds would be much better.
Much better. If they are part of the government or governance or part of the ruling formation, then they can't do all these
You
stupid
can't be
things.
looting banks and stuff.
Yeah, they can't do that. But from the other hand, other side, they can do all this.
I mentioned it on a very light note. I think there's a
Every
logic
week,
to what you're saying. Mhm.
see, ISIS-K is trying to prove to the people of Afghanistan that they are the actual power. Every week they are doing a blast. Please note, every week without fail. And they have not left a pattern. Sometimes it is a Hadara guy. Now it was a Afghan Talibani cleric.
Sunni guys, I mean, that was amazing,
That's
actually.
what I'm saying. So therefore, they are not leaving anybody who supported Taliban. They have killed him also. So it's kind of a battle of supremacy which is going on there in Afghanistan. And what best way to do it is you have fighters who are absolute crazy. ISISK, their approach to fighting is totally different, and all of them are suicide bombers. And I see that there is going to be a trend of suicide bombers coming up in the next
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
few months. And there is going to be a problem. And TDP might also take a hint from it and start troubling Pakistan in a surgical manner without troubling the civilian population.
We got a
They
hint
have,
from that Chinese, that lady who blew up the Chinese, the Confucius Institute
yeah, yeah,
instructors or something like that in
yeah, yeah,
Karachi.
yeah. So I think this is what the dynamics of Afghanistan is, to put it in simple terms.
So,
Just these five entities: Hazaras, ISISK, Resistance Front, TTP, Afghan Taliban, and Uyghurs. Just put them and put it on the map of Afghanistan. You will get your answer. With Pakistan as their adjunct, which is, I think, slowly turning into an entity which can't be relied upon for anything. The way they are shifting their, now I believe they're trying to go closer to the West. So what will be the impact on the Chinese? Pakistan have been known to ditch their best friends.
best friends. So that brings me to the last question. And India seems to be making certain strides in this entire game. I mean, of course, there are two parts to this. One, Indian moves within Afghanistan. And today there was a report where it was mentioned by Business Insider. And, one thing I find funny about these is sources talk about, they don't actually mention who it is. But they say that India is planning to look at certain projects within Afghanistan which have been stalled to kind of restart them. We know our embassy is online to a large extent. India calls them a technical team, fair enough, whatever it may be. The route of passage in terms of goods has started up. We know that for a fact. There is some back end communication happening because the Afghanistan army guys that got trained went back. They were received, and they've actually, I was reading somewhere, they've been made, they're planning to be made into a special forces sort of a small group or something like that. And so what do you how do you see this? And secondly, I also thought when India announced that India is going back into Afghanistan, I thought there would be some condemnation coming from especially the righteous West, which was mute. Now what's happening here, sir?
See, you have to look at this from 2 points. Firstly, is that India's rising independence in foreign policy
Mhm.
that somewhere mutes the international condemnation. Second is that the Indian diplomacy has come of age. It is not trying to please anyone. Let me be very clear. Earlier we were trying to please people,
Good boy. Yes, sir. Hmm.
right? Now we are trying to state our point of view that this is the reason and that's why I'm going. That's one. But the more important factor is why that India is not being condemned for this. Although I have a little different view as far as this move is concerned, but as far as the second reason why India is not being condemned for this is that how do you develop an alternative to Qatar?
That's an interesting point of view, right?
Unless you talk, unless you engage, you cannot get intelligence. Let me tell you, Pakistanis are totally out of the scene. So somewhere the world is also watching. Let's see how India is trying to negotiate with Afghanistan, because India is favorable to the West, a reliable country which would go the mile as far as the Western alignments are concerned. It has already gone into agreement in the Middle East with the Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Israel, the kind of quad there in the Middle East. It is now expanding itself into Afghanistan. India enjoys a good support with Iran. India has a working relation with Russia, with Afghanistan also engaged by India. Look at India's power. I tend to agree with McKenzie's statement, the CEO McKenzie's statement that the next century is for India. It's of India. How it comes about, it will be more by, look at our position. We used to call that India is not strategically located to exploit, and Pakistan is strategically located to exploit the interest of the West. And I think we are
Bypass.
doing
Hmm.
I think we are doing a great job of trying to, put ourselves in the center of everything, but in a manner which is unoffensive to most of the people, not through force, but intelligently, but surely. Get into the system. Unless you get into the system, you cannot find out. My only reservation on this issue is India must be more careful this time. It
Absolutely.
should not pump its money and get it wasted. 3 billion is a hell of a lot of money. I also look at it as an opportunity that whatever we have pumped in, can we extract something out of it? Is there a chance for salvaging something out of it? So start using your soft power of, training. Can we do a same process again in the name of training and start planting our people?
Yes.
After all, these officers who have been trained here and gone, why are they being received? Somewhere there is a quality training which has been given to them. There is an alternate to Pakistan which is being given to them. I think the Afghanis are trying to learn from their past, and they're not putting their eggs in one basket, so-called Pakistan.
So I want you to expand on that alternative to Qatar. That kind of struck a, I mean, it just struck me off.
See, as of now, most of the countries which are trying to negotiate with Afghanistan are going through Qatar,
Hmm.
because Qatar has that influence over Afghanistan and Pakistan in this region, which actually gives them a bridge to somehow approach this part of the world. If India generates that kind of support in Afghanistan and starts engagement, starts dialogue, maybe through money power only. I mean, it's okay. I mean, and as of now, Afghanistan requires money. It doesn't require bullets. Truly speaking, it has enough bullets to handle ISISK. Yeah, this kind of a war will keep on going. There'll be explosions. They will learn from their, from their experiences. They would harden their targets. Can India support them in, doing some kind of a defense against the ISISK? We are capable of doing it in advisory capacity. I'm looking at it from a factor that can we engage with Afghanistan, create an alternate route of diplomacy for the Western world to influence Afghanistan, wean it away from Pakistan. As of now, either they're going through Qatar or Pakistan. These are the two, elements which have been trying to influence Afghanistan. And
Even
in both
Qatar
of,
is not a very balanced.
yeah, even Qatar is, mired in a kind of an Islamic, whereas Islamic
And
trappings.
they've been sending money and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Mm.
but as far as India is concerned, it's a democratic country, it's a balanced country, proven country. It has certain aims, goals, etc., through which it is navigating itself. It is an economic powerhouse, to say the least. In PPP terms, we are already in the top three, and today we are the fifth, as sixth as far as the GDP term. If you consider in GDP terms, UK is being left behind, and the others are not very far away from us. Yeah, our HDIs may not be as good as the other countries, but so was Sri Lanka, was always rated higher than us in HDI. It was
In
rated
Bangladesh,
higher. Bangladesh was rated higher than us in HDI, higher than us in bloody economic.
per capita GDP and this and that.
And also economic systems, like their cotton was supposed to be better than ours, etc., etc. But ultimately, India has a base strength. If Al Qaeda calls itself as base, I think tomorrow, if the world has to see the base of democracy, it is India and the West. India on one side and West, entire total population totaled up together, make this base of democracy. Even the Second World War was won by India, and I have no hesitation in saying that. The number of troops which went into fighting the war were predominantly, the Japanese were predominantly fought by us,
North Africa,
and so was Africa, and
Haifa.
so was Italy. So if I have to put, if anyone has to look at it from a perspective of ideologies also, the base of democracy is India and the West. So West will always repose faith in India. Let me put it this way. Openly, they may say a statement here or there, but they know that where is the actual intention of India. It's not going to harm anyone. That also is a proven fact, which is sometimes negatively looked as far as our adversaries are concerned. But that's why I said a word of caution. When you're doing this, you're going through a minefield. And negotiating through minefield is a very difficult proposition. I only have faith because I believe Jashankar knows his job in and out. So I think he'll be able to negotiate through this minefield to the best. I mean, he's the best person. If he can't do it, nobody else can do it. The best thing to happen to Indian diplomacy was that Jashankar was made the foreign minister. I have no hesitation in saying that. There are hardliners in India who keep saying, keep rattling in terms of Islam. Say, Islam ke upar bharosa mat karo. Fine, but we have to live. We have to run our nation. So we must find ways whereby we have minimum casualties and maximum results. And if you can do that without losing your self-respect, without bowing down to anyone, I think that's the way. That's the net summary of Jashankar's approach. Without losing your self-respect, I will do what is best to my country. and
Comment.
I'll produce results.
Absolutely.
Worst comes to worst, I'll make an INS Vikrant also.
I think on that note, sir, this has been a very interesting discussion. I think three, four things majorly which has come out is, I think, if you allow me, sir, I'd like to use the trappings of power that you mentioned across.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a very
absolutely.
interesting connotation, and a lot of people hoped for this to happen in the first 6 months, but I guess it would take a little time for the Taliban to
It'll
also
come.
realize,
Yeah.
of course, for us to expect, and let me put it very clearly, expect a governance model to be created in an open and free society is a little too much. But for them to even start begin to understand international affairs is quite a movement in probably the right direction. Of course, the entire region of Pakistan in its own crisis, as you've mentioned, but India's role is critical. As I think you've brought out a very interesting thing as an alternative to Qatar, and that is something that one must take home because for any influence to happen, I think that's one element that needs a little bit of a pushback, because till now it was pretty much a very very hardline radical element that was actually handling all this from Qatar, Pakistan. Um, I think that's a very interesting point of view, sir. Sir, thank you so much. I know you're not even in the country. You've taken out time for me. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and till next time for another interesting discussion. Jai Hind, sir.
Thank you. Jai Hind. Jai Hind. Lovely talking to you.